The rain fell hard on the metal roofs of the small human settlement. It was cold, gray, and wet, just like every other day on this remote planet. People moved quickly through the muddy streets, holding on to plastic sheets and umbrellas. No one noticed the figure standing at the far edge of the fence. No one wanted to. She was thin, covered in a torn brown cloak, and her face hidden beneath the hood. Her skin was pale blue, eyes glowing faintly under the shadow. She didn't move, didn't speak, didn't even try to come closer. She just stood there at the gate, watching silently as humans passed by. Some whispered when they noticed her. Some looked away quickly. One man threw an empty food wrapper near her feet, laughing cruelly as he walked off. But she didn't react. She had learned not to. Inside one of the nearby homes, a little girl stood by the window. Her nose touched the glass, fogging it slightly as she stared out. Her name was Aaliyah, 7 years old, curious and kind. She had seen the alien woman 3 times this week, always standing in the same spot, always alone, always wet, always quiet. "Dad?" she said, turning to her father who was fixing an old radio. "There's someone outside the gate again." Her father didn't look up. "Don't look, sweetie, she's just passing through." "But she's not passing," Aaliyah whispered. "She's waiting." Her father sighed and stood up, walking to the window with her. He saw the figure, just as still and silent as the day before. "That's not our problem," he said softly, though he looked unsure. "Come away from the window." But Aaliyah didn't move. Her eyes filled with something heavy, something deep. "She's alone, Dad," she said again. "But so are we." That night, when the rain was still falling and her father had gone to sleep, Aaliyah slipped out. She wore her coat, her boots, and carried a small blanket in her arms. She moved carefully, too, through the back door, avoiding every creaky step. When she reached the gate, her heart was beating fast. The alien woman was still there, soaked, shivering, arms crossed tight. Her glowing eyes looked up as Aaliyah stepped closer. "I brought you this," Aaliyah said, holding out the blanket. The alien didn't speak. Her eyes watched Aaliyah's small hands carefully, like she expected a trick. "You look cold," Aaliyah whispered. Still no answer. Then slowly, the alien reached out, her fingers long and thin, her nails soft like glass. She touched the blanket like it might burn her. But Aaliyah kept smiling, not afraid, not stepping back. "My name's Aaliyah," the girl said gently. "What's yours?" The alien opened her mouth slightly, but no sound came. She looked down, her lips trembling. I don't have one," she said finally, her voice raspy and strange. Aaliyah tilted her head. "That's okay." She looked back toward her home and whispered, "I don't have a mom anymore. Maybe you can be her." The alien's head jerked up, her eyes wide in shock. "You want me to be?" Aaliyah nodded. "Be my mom, and maybe you can be my dad's bride too." The woman stumbled back a step, confused and shaking, but Aaliyah reached out and held her hand. The warmth made the alien gasp, like she hadn't felt gentle touch in years. "Come inside," Aaliyah said. "You'll get sick out here." The alien hesitated, looking past the gate, at the house glowing in the distance. She remembered houses like that, when she was younger, before everything was taken from her. Now, this small human child was offering her something she thought she'd lost forever. Hope. She followed slowly, each step unsure, her cloak dragging behind. They moved through the muddy street, quiet, careful. Aaliyah pushed open the back door and signaled for her to enter. The alien woman paused on the threshold, staring at the warm light inside, and then she stepped in, high, her body shaking from the cold, but her heart heavy with something else. Aaliyah smiled and placed the blanket around her shoulders. "You're home now," the girl said softly. The alien sat down on the floor near the heater, her eyes still scanning every corner. She didn't know if she could trust this. She didn't know if this was a dream, but for the first time in a very long time, she felt safe. And outside, the rain began to slow. The warmth of the room was strange to her. Her alien skin, soft and smooth like stone, began to feel again. The blanket Aaliyah gave her was still wrapped around her shoulders, now damp from rain and tears. She sat near the small heater, quiet, still, afraid to move too much. She thought maybe this was a trick. Maybe she would wake up back outside, cold and alone. Elia sat beside her with a bowl of soup she had quietly taken from the kitchen. "I'll get in trouble if he knows," Elia whispered, handing it over. "But I don't care." The alien woman took the bowl with both hands. It smelled strange but warm, and it made her stomach hurt with hunger. She sipped slowly, then faster, unable to stop. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. "Does it hurt?" Elia asked gently, watching her eat. The woman looked up, confused. "Your heart," Elia said, pointing to her own chest. The alien froze, her hands trembling as she lowered the bowl. "Yes," she said quietly. "It hurts a lot." Upstairs, the father woke to a sound. He frowned, stepped out of bed, and followed the faint smell of food. He walked down the stairs, slow and cautious. When he turned the corner and saw the alien woman in his kitchen, he stopped cold. "Ilya," he said firmly, "what is she doing here?" The girl jumped up, holding her arms out in front of the woman. "She was cold, Dad. She was gonna freeze." The man's face was tense, jaw clenched. He looked at the stranger sitting on the floor of his house. She didn't move, didn't beg, just looked at him like she expected to be thrown out. "She saved me," Ilya whispered, "because she let me save her." The man sighed. Rubin laid his hand across his tired face. He walked over, stood in front of the woman. "You can stay for the night," he said flatly. "But just one night." The alien nodded, slowly. She understood rules, conditions, limits. She had lived under them for too long. "One night is enough," she replied softly. Ilya smiled and went back upstairs, trusting her dad. But the woman didn't sleep. She stayed near the heater, alert, nervous, eyes never closing. She had learned never to sleep in strange places. But the silence in this home was not cruel. It was heavy. Yes, but not hateful. In the morning, she moved quietly, cleaning up the bowl, wiping the table, sweeping the corner where her wet footprints had dried. She found tools in the back room and repaired a broken leg of a chair without being asked. The man came down, surprised to see her moving around his house like she belonged. He didn't speak at first, just watched her hands move with calm focus. "You fixed that," he finally said, pointing to the chair. She looked up and nodded. "I used to build things. Before." He didn't ask what before meant. Instead, he poured 2 cups of coffee, one for himself, one he pushed slowly toward her. She blinked, then took it with both hands. It was bitter, strange, but warm. She drank, and for a moment, they sat quietly at the table like people do in normal homes. "Ilya likes you," the man said after a while. "She misses her mother." The woman looked down at her cup, her fingers tightening around it. "I am not a mother," she said. "I don't even have a name." "She doesn't care," he said. "She sees something in you." Later that day, the woman stepped outside for a moment. The air was dry now, the sun out for the first time in days. But as she stood near the fence again, she heard voices, 2 neighbors walking by. "That's her, the alien in Jacob's house," one whispered. "She's dangerous, they all bondis." "Azar," said the other. "They should have sent her to the outer zones." She turned her face away, hiding the sting in her chest. She wasn't surprised, just tired. She walked back inside and shut the door gently. Ilya ran to her and hugged her leg. "Where'd you go? I thought you left." "I just needed air," the woman whispered. "You can't leave now," Ilya said, smiling brightly. "You're part of our home." That night, the man placed an extra blanket and pillow in the corner near the heater. "Sleep," he said simply. She sat down, curling up with the blanket, and this time, she closed her eyes. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to sleep under a roof, not as a prisoner, not as a beggar, but as something else, something fragile and new. A guest, maybe even something more. And outside, the stars blinked quietly, watching the beginning of something none of them expected. The next morning, the sun peeked through the gray clouds, The settlement came alive with sounds, vendors shouting, carts moving, children laughing, but something else moved too, quiet and sharp, like a shadow through the wind. Rumors. She's still there, a woman whispered to her friend, her eyes narrowed. In that farmer's house. You mean Jacob's? The other replied. The one with the little girl? That's the one. She's letting the alien live with them. The whispers spread like wildfire. Fast, unseen, dangerous. In the center of the market, Elia held her father's hand tightly. They were buying vegetables and a new pair of boots for her. The alien woman walked behind them, her hood pulled low over her head. She kept her gaze down, silent, every step careful. She knew she wasn't welcome here. She felt it in the way people looked away, and then looked back. One boy pointed. She has glowy eyes, he said loudly. His mother pulled him back, frowning. Don't stare, and stay away from her. The alien woman said nothing. She had heard worse. She had been treated like a thing, a danger, a curse. Before, this wasn't new, but it still hurt. They passed a stall where an old woman sold dough, dried fruits. She leaned forward and hissed toward Jacob. You letting her stay in your house now? She saved our animals from the fire last week, Jacob replied calmly. She's earning her place. Aliens don't belong here, the woman spat. They never will. Jacob said nothing more. He just took Elia's hand and moved on. The alien woman followed, her steps just a little slower. Every whisper felt like a weight on her back. But then Elia turned around and grabbed her hand. She smiled up at her and said, Don't worry, Mom. The alien woman froze. That word again. The little girl kept saying it so easily, so honestly. She wasn't pretending. To her, it was already true. Behind them, a group of children giggled, mocking. Elia's mom is an alien, they sang, ugly and weird. One threw a pebble that hit the alien woman's shoulder. She didn't flinch, but Elia turned fast, her face red with anger. She's not ugly, she shouted. She's beautiful, and she saved me. Other parents pulled their kids away, embarrassed. Jacob looked around, his eyes fierce now. He didn't speak, but everyone saw the warning in his stare. The whispers stopped for a moment, only for a moment. Back at home, the alien woman sat on the porch, sewing a torn curtain. Elia played in the dirt nearby, drawing shapes with a stick. Jacob stood nearby, sharpening tools. He looked over and asked, Do you regret staying? She paused, then shook her head slowly. No, she said, but I am afraid. You don't have to be, he said, wiping sweat from his brow. I've seen the worst of people, but I've also seen them change. She looked up at him, unsure. He continued, They fear what they don't understand. But Elia understands you. That's enough for me. That night, Elia placed a flower on the alien woman's pillow. It was old and dry, but it was all she could find. This is for you, she whispered. It's from the place I used to go with my real mom. The alien woman touched the flower gently. I don't deserve this, she said softly. You do, Elia replied. You stayed. The next day, something strange happened. As they passed the market again, a man from the tool shop walked up. He held a broken scanner in his hands. I heard you fixed Jacob's fence, he said, avoiding her eyes. Think you can fix this? The alien woman hesitated, then nodded. I can try. She worked on it all afternoon, sitting on the porch with old wires and scraps. By sunset, the scanner beeped and lit up. The man came back, surprised. You actually fixed it, he said, blinking. Thank you. He handed her a small bag of dried fruits. Payment, he said awkwardly. She didn't know what to say. She just bowed her head, and that night, Jacob smiled quietly to himself, not because everything was fine, but because something had shifted. A door had opened. A seed had been planted. In the dark corners of the market, whispers still moved, but now, some of them were changing shape. She fixed my scanner. She saved that girl. Maybe she's not like the others. The alien woman still slept near the heater, but tonight, she didn't curl up so tight. She left her boots by the door. And when Elia hugged her goodnight, she hugged back, and outside, under the soft sky, the whispers began to change. The wind howled that night. It was colder than usual, sharp like a blade. The stars above the colony blinked behind thick clouds. Most homes had locked doors, dim lights, and silence. But inside Jacob's house, there was warmth, laughter, and soup boiling gently on the stove. Elia was sitting beside the alien woman, brushing her hair with slow, gentle hands. "Your hair feels like water silk," Elia giggled. The alien woman smiled, a real one this time. She didn't know how to describe the feeling. She only knew that she hadn't smiled like this in years. Jacob sat across the room, fixing an old lamp. He looked up now and then, his eyes soft, thoughtful. The house didn't feel as heavy anymore. It felt full, alive, maybe even healing. But peace never lasts long in a place full of suspicion. Far on the edge of the property, someone was moving in the dark. A figure crouched near the barn, carrying a bottle filled with thick black liquid. They poured it along the wood, muttering words full of hate and fear. And then, with a shaking hand, they struck a match. Flames leapt high, orange and hungry. They danced up the barn wall like angry spirits. The wind fed them quickly, and within seconds, the entire barn was a wall of fire. Jacob smelled smoke first. He jumped up, grabbed a flashlight, and opened the front door. The blast of heat hit him in the face. "Elia, stay inside," he shouted. Then he ran, barefoot, toward the barn. The alien woman stood frozen for a moment, then she heard a scream. One of the goats was still inside. She didn't hesitate. She threw off her blanket and sprinted out the door. "Elia, lock the door," she yelled without looking back. Elia watched from the window, hands shaking. She didn't cry, just whispered, "Please come back." Jacob tried to break open the barn doors, but the fire pushed him back, burning the air around him. Then he saw her, rushing past him, eyes wild with fear and focus. "What are you doing?" he yelled. "I'm getting them out," she shouted back. Before he could stop her, she had disappeared into the flames. Inside the barn, it was chaos. Smoke curled like black snakes, the heat burning her skin. She coughed hard, eyes watering, but she moved forward. One by one, she untied the terrified animals. She slapped them gently to push them toward the open door. The last goat was trapped behind a broken beam. She lifted it with all her strength, ignoring the burning pain in her palms. Finally, it moved, limping out. She followed, stumbling, her lungs screaming for air. Jacob grabbed her as she fell out of the barn. He wrapped a soaked cloth around her shoulders and dragged her away from the fire. The barn collapsed behind them with a loud crack. Elia ran from the house, tears pouring down her cheeks. She threw her arms around the alien woman. "You came back," she whispered. "You didn't leave me." The alien woman was shaking, coughing, but alive. "I promised," she said weakly. Jacob looked at her, his eyes full of something new, respect, and maybe something deeper. The neighbors arrived minutes later. They saw the barn in ashes, the animals safe, the alien woman burned and gasping, and they saw Elia clinging to her like a real daughter to a real mother. No one spoke at first. Then one of the older farmers stepped forward. "She ran into the fire?" Jacob nodded. "Saved them all," he said. The crowd was silent. No one knew what to say. Later, when the fire was out and the smoke faded, the alien woman sat wrapped in blankets. Jacob was tending to her hands. "You didn't have to do that," he said. "Yes, I did," she replied. "Because this is my home too." That night, she didn't sleep by the heater. Jacob made her a proper bed on the couch. Elia placed her pillow beside it, refusing to sleep anywhere else. "You're my hero," she said, eyes wide and full of stars. "No," the alien woman replied, pulling her close. "I just didn't want to lose my family." The next morning, something strange happened. A neighbor knocked on their door, an old woman who once whispered behind their backs. She held a basket of fresh bread and a jar of honey. "For the brave one," she said, not meeting the alien woman's eyes. But she left the basket on the step, a silent offering, a small beginning. And from that day on, the whispers in town were not just filled with hate. They were mixed now, with wonder, with respect, and with questions. Maybe, just maybe, the alien woman wasn't a curse. Maybe she was something rare, something worth protecting. Inside the house, Ilya held the alien's hand and whispered again, "You're not going anywhere, right?" The alien woman smiled softly. "No," she said. "Nas. Out anymore." The days after the fire were quiet but tense. The barn was gone, but the animals lived. Neighbors who once gossiped now offered small help, some with fence repairs, others with seeds or tools. The alien woman worked beside Jacob silently, her hands still healing from the burns. Ilya stayed near her always, holding her hand whenever she could. For the first time, the house felt whole. At night, they ate together as a family. They laughed, shared stories, and Ilya often made silly jokes to make them both smile. But peace never lasts forever. One morning, the sky changed. A deep humming sound echoed across the fields. Jacob stepped outside and looked up. A small alien ship was descending slowly, its body silver and smooth like flowing metal. It landed in the open space near the settlement's edge. Silent but heavy with purpose, the alien woman stepped out behind Jacob. The moment her eyes saw the ship, her face turned pale, her hands trembled, and she stepped back without a word. "Ilya, go inside," Jacob said, his voice calm but sharp. Ilya obeyed, but she peeked through the window. Worried, 3 tall figures walked down from the ship. They wore silver robes and carried thin staffs that glowed faintly. Their faces were sharp and cold, eyes like mirrors. The leader stepped forward and spoke in a language only the alien woman understood. She answered slowly, her voice low and tight. "What are they saying?" Jacob asked, standing protectively beside her. "They are from my world," she said, "from my former house. They say I broke my bond, disobeyed, fled before mating. They say I belong to them." Jacob clenched his fists. "You don't belong to anyone." The alien woman shook her head. "They don't care," she whispered. "They came to take me back for punishment." The lead alien stepped forward again and spoke in clear human tongue. "She is ours," he said. "She ran from sacred duty. She is not fit for Earth life. She will return with us and face trial." Jacob stepped forward, blocking their view of her. "She's under my roof now," he said. "She's saved lives here, helped us. She is family." The alien narrowed his eyes. "You have 1 day," he said coldly. "Then we take her by force." Then they returned to their ship, leaving silence behind. Back inside the house, Ilya was crying. "They want to take you away?" she asked. "But you didn't do anything wrong." The alien woman kneeled and hugged her tightly. "They don't care about wrong or right," she said. "They care about control." Jacob sat at the table, deep in thought. "We need a plan," he said. "We're not handing you over." "But they have power," the alien woman replied. "Their weapons are advanced." She paused, her eyes slowly narrowing with memory. "There might be something," she said. "Old tech, hidden in my people's ships." That night, she snuck into the barn ruins. Buried beneath a broken beam, she pulled out a metal box she had hidden long ago. Before the fire, inside was a cube the size of her palm, dark and silent. Jacob joined her silently, watching. "What is it?" he asked. "An override core," she replied. "It speaks to ancient bloodlines, something even they fear." She spent the night working on it in secret, whispering to it in her language. Her fingers moved fast, her mind sharp. Ilya watched her from the doorway, eyes wide. "Are you making a weapon?" she asked. The woman looked at her and shook her head. "I'm making a choice," she said, a voice louder than theirs. By morning, the ship returned. 3 aliens walked out again, weapons ready. Jacob stood in front of the house, Ilya beside him. The alien woman stepped forward with the cube in her hand. It glowed softly, pulsing like a heartbeat. "I am not yours," she said loudly, her voice strong. "You threw me out. You cast me aside. Now I have a home, a family, a name, because they gave it to me. You don't get to take that away." The cube glowed brighter, and a low tone rang through. The field, the alien leaders flinched, stepping back. "That device is forbidden," one hissed. "It answers to truth," she said. "And today, the truth is, I choose to stay." The energy from the cube surrounded her like a shield. The alien ship's scanners shut down. Their weapons flickered and died. Fear filled their faces now. They turned quickly, retreating. They said no more words, just boarded their ship and left. The moment they were gone, silence fell again. Jacob walked over and placed his hand on her shoulder. "You stood up to them," he said, "for us." Elia ran to her, hugging her legs. "You're my mom now," she whispered. "No one can take you." The alien woman dropped the cube and let it fall into the earth. She no longer needed it, because now she had something stronger than tech or fear. She had love. The morning after the alien ship vanished, the sky looked clearer than it had in weeks. For the first time, the settlement felt different, not just quieter, but lighter. People walked slower, looked toward Jacob's home with curiosity instead of fear. Some nodded politely when they saw the alien woman hanging laundry beside Elia. Others didn't speak at all, but they didn't stare with anger anymore. Inside the house, Jacob stirred his tea and watched them through the window. The alien woman had not slept, not after what happened, but she smiled gently at Elia, helping her fold a shirt. It was a simple moment, but full of something precious. Normal. Later, they sat together at the table. Jacob cleared his throat and said, "You know you could have left. You had the chance." The alien woman looked down at her hands, still bandaged from the fire. "Yes," she said softly, "but I didn't want to." Elia grinned wide and leaned on her shoulder. "You stayed because of me, right?" The woman nodded. "Yes, because of you, and him, and this home. I was born to serve, to obey, to mate without choice," she continued. "But now, for the first time, I got to choose." There was silence for a while, the soft kind. Then Jacob looked at her and asked, "What's your name?" The woman blinked, confused. "I don't have one," she said. "Then we'll give you one," Elia said happily. "You need a name if you're part of our family." Elia ran to her room and came back with a worn book of old Earth names. They spent the morning flipping through pages, laughing at strange ones. At last, Elia pointed to a name and said, "What about Mira?" "It means light," she added, "and you brought light to us." The woman smiled slowly, touched her own chest. "Mira," she whispered. "Yes, I like that." And just like that, the alien woman had a name, but peace still had its shadows. That afternoon, the settlement council called Jacob to a meeting. Mira stayed home with Elia, unaware of what was being discussed. Inside the dusty meeting hall, 6 humans sat in a circle, faces serious. One of them, a man named Cole, leaned forward and said, "She used alien tech on our soil. She may have saved the girl, but what if others come?" Jacob kept his voice calm, but firm. "She could have left with them, but she chose to stay. She protected us." An older woman from the council spoke. "She's different," she said, "but she's not dangerous." "She could have destroyed them, but she only defended herself," another added. "Besides, the child calls her mom now. We can't take that away from her." In the end, they voted 4-2. Mira would be allowed to stay, but they warned Jacob, "If trouble comes again, we expect you to protect the town first." He nodded, but inside, he knew where his heart already stood. When he returned home, Mira met him at the door. He said nothing, just handed her a small paper with one word written on it. "Mira." She laughed and held it to her chest. Elia jumped up and down. "You're real now, officially real." That night, the 3 of them sat around the fire pit outside. Jacob cooked vegetables. Mira added strange spices she remembered from her plan. "Heat." Elia sang a silly song about goats and fire and bravery. They laughed until their sides hurt. Then the stars came out, bright and quiet. Mira leaned back against a wooden post, her eyes on the sky. "My people always said the stars were watching," she said softly. "They watch and wait, but they never act." "But you acted," Jacob said. "You changed your story." Mira turned to him, her voice steady. "I was once part of a royal line, destined for breeding and silence. but now I fix fences, cook stew, and hold a child who calls me mom. And I would fight again to keep this life." Jacob didn't say anything. He simply reached out and took her hand. Elia saw them and clapped. Hold it," she giggled. "You look like a real couple." They laughed, but Mira didn't let go. Neither did Jacob. That night, Mira didn't sleep by the heater or on the couch. She lay beside Elia in her small bed, and when the little girl whispered, "You'll still be here tomorrow, right?" Mira answered, "Always." Outside, the wind whispered across the fields, but this time it carried no fear, only peace. Morning came slow and golden. Sunlight slipped through the curtains like soft ribbons of light. Mira opened her eyes and smiled. Elia was still asleep, arms wrapped tightly around her waist, like a tiny vine. For a moment, Mira didn't move. She simply listened. To the quiet, the birds, the wind, to the sound of a life she never thought she could have. Jacob was already outside, chopping wood near the barn ruins. The fire pit had been cleared, and new fence posts were stacked neatly nearby. He worked with focus, but his eyes kept drifting toward the house, toward the door where Mira would step out every morning now. And she did, barefoot, hair still messy, a calm look on her face. He paused, resting the axe on his shoulder. "Good sleep?" he asked. She nodded. "Best in years." Ilya soon ran out behind her, giggling, carrying 2 mugs of warm tea. "Dad made it too strong again," she said, wrinkling her nose. Mira took a sip and smiled. "It's perfect." They spent the morning working as a team. Mira repaired part of the chicken coop, Ilya fed the animals, and Jacob hammered a new gate in place. To anyone watching from afar, they looked like a real family, because they were. At midday, a knock came at the door. Jacob opened it to find a young couple from the settlement. They looked nervous, holding something wrapped in cloth. The woman stepped forward, eyes on Mira. "My father's scanner is broken," she said. "They said you might know how to fix it." Mira stepped closer, wiped her hands on a towel, and nodded slowly. "I can try," she said. They handed it over with shaky hands and left quickly, but not rudely. When Mira looked down, she saw the cloth was wrapped with fresh bread too. She worked on the scanner all afternoon, Ilya watching closely. "How do you know what goes where?" the girl asked. Mira pointed to a wire and said, "This one is like a heartbeat. It keeps the others alive. Like you keep me alive," Ilya whispered, smiling. The scanner beeped to life by sunset, glowing softly. Jacob returned from the fields and raised his brows. "You fixed it again?" "Third one this week," Mira replied. Word spreads fast. That evening, something strange happened. The councilwoman, the same one who once doubted Mira, arrived with others from the village. They brought tools, seeds, and small crates of food. "We know you lost the barn," the woman said. "We'd like to help rebuild." Jacob nodded respectfully, but Mira stepped forward, unsure. "Why?" she asked. The woman hesitated, then answered, "Because you stayed. Because you didn't run, and you protected one of our own. And because Ilya smiles again." The villagers helped set up posts and clear land. Mira worked beside them, still quiet, but more open. Someone asked her what kind of barn she wanted to build. She smiled and said, "One with windows facing the sunrise." That night, they held a small dinner outside. Neighbors brought food and drinks. Children played games around the fire. Ilya wore a paper crown she made herself, and gave Mira one too. "You're the queen of the new barn," she declared. Everyone laughed, even Mira. Jacob stood up as the stars appeared above them. He held a cup in his hand, and looked at the faces around him. "I never thought I'd find family again," he said. "After my wife passed, I stopped hoping. But this woman came into our lives like a storm, quiet, then bright, then strong. And now she has a name, because she earned it." He turned to Mira. "I never thought I'd say this to someone who wasn't from my world. But Mira, you belong here, with us." The crowd clapped softly. Some smiled, some nodded with misty eyes. Ilya stood and grabbed both their hands. She pulled them in front of the old wooden arch Jacob had repaired. "Now, kiss," she said firmly. "You're both mine now." They laughed awkwardly, but their hands didn't let go. Jacob leaned in gently, Mira closed her eyes, and in front of neighbors and stars, they kissed. Not out of pressure, not out of custom, but out of choice, out of love. Later, when the guests left and the fire burned low, Mira sat alone on the porch for a while. She looked at the stars and whispered, "You watched me all my life. Now watch what I become." Aaliyah came and sat beside her, placing her head on her shoulder. "I'm glad I found you at the gate," she said sleepily. Mira kissed her hair and whispered back, "No, little one, you didn't find me, you saved me." And inside that house, with love, laughter, and belonging, Mira finally became more than an outcast. She became a mother, a partner, a name whispered not with fear, but with pride. The stars blinked quietly again, and this time they smiled back.